Hello friends, welcome to a new video. My name is Hannah. Welcome if you are new here. I am slap bang in the middle of doing a lot of Booker Prize reading at the minute. I'm sort of reading the long list. I've not committed to 100% reading all of the long list, but I'm reading at the moment a lot of books that are nominated for this year's Booker Prize. And that's great, and I love that. It's my sort of fiction. However, I also thought it might be nice to have a bit of light relief in and amongst it, because I've read a couple of the titles so far, vlog incoming for that at some point, and it's quite heavy and I am in need of something light. And I have been meaning to explore this series for a very long time. Now, it's not going to come as a surprise to you, because I assume you will have clicked on this video because you've seen in the thumbnail that I am going to be reading ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. I have never read any Sarah J Maas before. I quite like fantasy. I don't really read a lot of romance. I do not read a lot of smutty romance. But I fell down a YouTube black hole, as happens every so often, a few months ago, and watched all of Carrie Can Read's plot summaries of this series, and I was intrigued, and I was particularly intrigued because she leaves all the smut out, because she's not a smutty lady, and it has made my brain itchy because now I need to know. So that's what we're doing in this vlog. I'm gonna just sort of check in with you. This is going to be incredibly informal. I'm not going to be doing like big sit down in-depth kind of chats about it, but I'll take you along on my reading experience. As I said, I do not read a lot of stuff in this genre. I'm coming into it with an open heart and an open mind, and hopefully it will be good fun. What this is not going to be is a plot summary, because Carrie Can Read is the queen of plot summaries. I will link her series down below where she does the plot summaries for these books. They are long, but they are brilliant. So if that's what you're wanting, go there, and then you can come back here for the juicy smutty stuff, which I will probably tell you about. Which at that point, darling sweet girl Helen, if you're watching this one's not for you. Okay, I love you for being here, but just stop now. Okay. I'm going in. According to my e-reader, I have 582 pages. Let's go. Just gonna come at you with the unflattering angles right off the bat in this vlog. And 2 chapters in. So far we've met our main character, Pharaoh. She is giving Katniss Everdeen vibes. It's winter. She's in the woods. She's hunting. She's hunting, and there's not much around. We're getting the vibes that she is not very wealthy. There is not a lot of food, and for whatever reason, she's the youngest of 3 daughters, and it is apparently her responsibility to take care of everyone. We know now that her dad was previously, they were quite wealthy, but he got into like debt, and his creditors like broke his legs, and so he can't really work, and he's kind of lost his drive. The mum is dead, and her 2 elder sisters are fucking useless. Like, they're really mean, and they won't help. So that's where we're up to. So Nesta's been in the forest. She's killed a deer. In the process, as she was hunting this deer, this massive fucking wolf appeared, also stalking the deer, and she killed the wolf, even though at one point she thought it might be Fae. So the humans live in the human realm, and there's this border with the fairylands, and the Fae live on the other side of the border. And we are scared of the Fae. They are not a good time. And where Pharaoh lives is quite close to the border. So, yeah, so far, Cinderella vibes, Hunger Games vibes. Very readable, whipping through it. Cool. Just like these sisters better, like, I can't remember what happens to them in the series. Oh, yeah, I know I said I watched Carrie can read do the plot summaries, but I am Hannah lost the plot, so I've already forgotten everything. So, yeah, let's hope the sisters get like a little perspective. Note to future self: the Fae can't hack ash, as in ash wood, or iron. Don't know why, but I suspect it will become part of the plot later. There are these people in their village called, oh, what are they called? Fuck's sake, I literally just read it. Children of the Blessed. Children of the Blessed, who worship the Fae, or the High Fae. And one of the villagers have just called the woman a fairy-loving whore. And Pharaoh couldn't disagree, which is why I am convinced that she could never love a fae. Right? So it turns out that wolf Pharaoh killed, not a wolf. It was a fairy. And a big scary monster thing has just rocked up to her house, informed her that that wolf was a fairy, and because of this treaty between the humans and the fae, now it's a life for a life. So because Pharaoh killed the wolf slash fae, she has to die, or she could live out her days in Prithian, which is the Fae lands. But she can never return to the human realms. And so Pharaoh is off to fairyland. Shock horror, the big scary beast actually turns into a really hot guy. I love her, she's such a dope. Like, she's like, oh my god, he's gonna be so fast. But maybe if I run away really quick and like chuck some furniture behind him. Like, no, sweetheart. No, you're not gonna get away from it. I'm sure it will be explained at some point, but in the fairy world, they use the word cauldron to mean like God. So if you're being like, God, no, they'll say like, cauldron, no. And I, what? Hey, so the TLDR so far is Pharaoh has been taken to fairyland. She's living in this house. She's being very ungrateful about the whole thing. Generally acting like she's some super sleuth when she straight up has zero subtlety in her. She has sort of worked out that Tamlin, the guy that was the monster, is a high fae. And his pal Lucian is like one of his courtiers. They're all wearing masks because something has happened to the magic. There's this like blight, and they were at this masquerade ball 49 years ago, and now their masks are fused to their face. So they're all wearing masks, which I guess is, you know, so we don't know what they look like. But yeah, that's happening. Pharaoh was trying to work. She keeps basically trying to find loopholes in the treaty, and I'm like, babe, just be happy that you're alive, but she won't. She like kind of engineers this situation with Lucian, the courtier, who she wants to kind of speak on her behalf, even though he doesn't like her. And they go on a hunt in the woods. Oh, Lucian hates her because she killed the wolf who was his friend Andrus. And we find out a few things. We find out there's a creature called a Suriel that always tells the truth. And Feyre's like, cool, I'm gonna find one. And Lucian's like, okay, babe. We find out that only the like top quality Fae have like a special power, like Tam's is shapeshifting. And then the lower Fae have like their little like quirks, like the Suriel, like being able to tell you the truth to any answer or any question. And then the ones in the middle, like Lucian, are basically just like kind of good and they're there to rule. They're like the ruling classes. And they encounter something called the Bogue in the forest, which is like this creepy thing. And Lucian's like, don't look at it. Like, look away. Just like look over there. Because if you look at it, it can attack you. But if you don't look at it, it can't. And Tam finds out that they encountered the Bogue in the forest and he's gone off to fight it because even though no one can kill it, Tamlin can. And just at the end of that chapter, Feyre's kind of like looking at the woods at night, waiting for Tamlin to like come out, see if he's actually managed to kill this Bogue thing. And Daddy's home. So that's where we're up to. It's obvious that we're going to get some Feyre Tamlin stuff, and we're just in that. This is the bit that I don't really care for in romance. I'm not a fan of the enemies to lovers anyway, but clearly we're building towards it. Like, so far, writing style is fine. It's absolutely nothing special, but it's not making me want to hurl. And it's readable. It's like rocketing along. So there we go. I don't know how much plot to talk about here, but like Pharaoh is in the court place. We got Tamlin, head honcho guy, love interest. I mean, allegedly they hate each other, but love interest. And Lucian is Tamlin's like best bro. But like the banter that Lucian and Feyre have is like, God, I cannot physically roll my eyes enough. I'm having like a realization about myself as I reflect on the character of Feyre, because she's got this like, you know, she has to stay here. It's part of the deal. She can't go back home. She knows this, and yet she's searching for this loophole. She's captured this whole surreal fairy thing that can only tell the truth and la 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 la. She has discovered, oh no, I really have to stay here and I can't go home. And I just can't relate, because what I'm realizing about myself is I think I'm quite defeatist. You know, if someone's like, this is your life now, you can't have that old life anymore, I'd just be like, okay, all right. I mean, especially if, you know, the life that you now have is in this like fancy manner and it's always springtime and you can do whatever you want, you just can't go home. Like, I wouldn't love it, but I could deal. I'm actually getting quite bored of how oblivious Feyre is. It's really annoying. I think we're about to have a Beauty and the Beast moment where Feyre's realizing that Tamlin actually has some feelings and maybe might be a nice guy deep down after all. Because why? Because he's going to show her a gallery. And what does Pharaoh love? She loves painting. I mean, swap library for books, and there we go. Beauty and the Beast. Okay, this might just be because I don't read a lot of romance, right? Is it normal in like an enemies to lovers sort of trope? Like 10 pages ago, they didn't like each other. You sensed that they did, but you know, they didn't like each other. And now they're in a glen, and he's like laughing. Okay. They are not about to have a naked swim in a literal starlight pool. Tell me that they're not about to do that. Good God. Also, as a sidebar, can I just say, like, I'm not going to hate on an age gap, but I do hate the prevalence of, like, the guy is, like, hundreds of years old and the girl is, like, 22. It's creepy and I hate it. So, you know, earlier I was like, I hate how oblivious Pharaoh is. So, like, we've just had this, like, Tamlin's just given her, like, a bit of backstory about his pal Lucian, who's the emissary, like his bestie. And it's this whole thing. He's the youngest son of the High Lord of the Autumn Court, which should be the best court because autumn's the best season, but apparently it's bad. And it's very sad. Basically, he fell in love with this girl. Family didn't approve, executed her right in front of him. And then when he tried to leave and run away, three of his brothers tried to kill him. Him and Tamlin killed two of them, and then one ran away, and then Tamlin basically like adopted him into the Spring Court. And you know, that's like pretty traumatic, la la la. And now Feyre's like, oh, well, I guess he has reasons for like behaving the way he has. And it's like, yeah, babe, like everybody does. Come on now, darling. Like what, you think like every other person's past is this vacuum that can't possibly be in any way informed by like informing their like present. Do you know what I mean? Like, sweetheart, yeah, people have history and that history makes them who they are. Why are we teaching you this? Like this is what it says. It didn't quite excuse everything Lucian had said and done to me, but I understood now. I could understand the walls and barriers he had no doubt constructed around himself. My chest was too tight, too small to fit the ache building in it. I mean, sure, make it all about you, Pharaoh. But you know, you're like, these people are like hundreds, if not thousands of years old. Obviously, they're going to have baggage. It's so silly. I thought we'd dodged the whole we're going on a starlight swim thing. No. Turns out the recounting of Lucian's traumatic past was just the preamble, and they are, in fact, going to swim in the starlight pool. Tamlin's glorious body was honed by centuries of fighting and brutality. And if that doesn't turn you on, what will? I don't think we're going to be getting smart yet, but if that is an indication of the direction we're going in, good lord. So our girl Pharaoh was being a self-absorbed brat, shock, and like ripped this rose off this rose bush. And in doing so, the thorns made her hands bleed. And Tamlin has kissed her hands, and the wounds are gone. Stop! Pharaoh just doesn't know why Tamlin is being nice to her. And he says, because your human joy fascinates me. The way you experience things in your lifespan so wildly and deeply and all at once is entrancing. I'm drawn to it, even when I know I shouldn't be, even when I try not to be. Oh, we've got our first one. He left me and I took a gasping breath, not realizing I'd been holding it. Okay, 1. Let's do a tally. Has Tamlin written her poetry? Has Tamlin written her poetry? There once was a lady most beautiful, spirited if a little unusual. Her friends were few, but how the men did queue, but to all she gave a refusal. That's the first one. And then the others, apparently, we don't get to see them, made her blush. And by the time he read the third one, her face was burning. Interesting. Okay, sure. I mean, I think that's preferable to earnest love poetry, to be honest. I would rather someone wrote me a limerick. Okay, so they're using the word. Farah's not very literate. She's been trying to she's got like basic reading skills. But her family lost all their money before she kind of finished her schooling. So she'd made this list in the library of words that she didn't understand or needed to look up. And Tamlin found it. This was like earlier in the book, which I didn't really feel like telling you about, but now here we are and I'm telling you about it. And Tamlin has used the words in the poems. So he's written her naughty poetry with some educational benefit. So, do you know what? I'm coming around to it. I'm not mad. Okay, we're getting some definitions here because the word mate has been used a lot, and mating. And Farah is asking Tamlin about it. So she says, you said that your father had it planted for your parents upon their mating, not wedding? And he says, High Fae mostly marry, he said, his golden skin flushing a bit. But if they're blessed, they'll find their mate, their equal, their match in every way. High Fae wed without the mating bond, but if you find your mate, the bond is so deep that marriage is insignificant in comparison. Well, do we think Farah is going to discover a mating bond at some point in this series? We're on the dog walk. But I'm reading on my phone because Lewin is just eating grass. And there's this festival coming up called Callan Mai, like spring night or something. And Tamlin has told Farah in no uncertain terms that she is not invited and she is to spend the entire night in her room and she is not to leave. Taking bets on whether Farah stays in her fucking bedroom like a good girl. Christ. So just bless Farah. I mean, she snuck out of her room immediately. She lasted till 10 p.m. Of course she did. She's like, oh my god, there's loads of high fae there, but they don't live in the manor. Like, yeah, it's an entire fucking realm, babe. Did you think all the people in the realm lived in the one house? Honestly. So what a surprise. A human woman at a fairy rite has found herself in a bit of a sticky situation. These 3 pretty nasty fairies are definitely trying to take advantage of her in some way. Very scary, not nice for Pharaoh. And then this man, fairy, rescues her. She doesn't see his face. He like basically picks her up and is like, there you are, I've been looking for you. And when he turns around, when the other fairies have gone away, because they're scared of him, so this guy's like hot shit. And he's the most beautiful man she's ever seen. Oh, love triangle time. Lewin says hi. What I am going to say is that this new boy has a massive advantage over Tam Tam in that he doesn't have a mask fucking stuck to his face. Have I mentioned this? That like everyone in the spring court has like a mask that's like been magically stuck onto their face. I can't remember if I've told you about that. But yeah, so Pharaoh hasn't actually seen what Tamlin looks like. I mean, she's seen his jaw and it's a nice looking jaw. But, you know, I feel like, you know, if you can see their face, you can see their face. Scrap the face because his voice was a lover's purr that sent shivers through me, caressing every muscle, bone, and nerve. I've just dropped cola pop down my tits. Like, this is the thing with Pharaoh. So she's just been saved by this guy, and internally she has acknowledged, oh, like, how do you even thank someone for saving your life? And then he's like, why are you here, mortal human lady? And she's like, my friends brought me here, 2 ladies. And he was like, what were their names? And she doesn't reply. And it's like, when it became apparent I wouldn't answer, he chuckled. You're welcome, he said, for saving you. I bristled at his arrogance. Like, bitch, he did save you. He did save you. And no, you haven't said thank you yet. It will surprise absolutely nobody that the great rite that gets performed on Fire Night, Callan Mai, is a sex thing. So, Lucian has discovered Pharaoh, and quite rightly, has like hauled her out and is like, what the fuck are you doing here? And you're like, didn't anyone actually tell you what goes on tonight? So, tonight, Tam will allow great and terrible magic to enter his body. The magic will seize control of his mind, his body, his soul, and turn him into the hunter. It will fill him with his sole purpose to find the maiden. From their coupling, magic will be released and spread to the earth, where it will regenerate life for the year to come. Now that's sounding a little assaulty to me, but let's see how this plays out. So she goes back to her room, right? Good. Go back to your room, Pharaoh. She falls asleep for a bit. She wakes up at 2 o'clock when, admittedly, the drums have stopped. And she's like, well, that must mean the Great Rite is happening. And she's a bit peckish, so she leaves her room and she goes to the fucking kitchens and she eats a fucking lemon tart. And I get it. I'm a hungry girl too. I like a snack. But Pharaoh, sweetheart, you've basically just been warned that basically you could get raped if you don't stay in your room. Because after Lucian was like, yeah, Tam does that. But then basically we all shag because that's extra springtime magic. And everyone's like on the lookout for a mate. So like, if it's not Tam, someone could come find you. They've got really good senses. Stay in your fucking room, Pharaoh. Jesus. Guess who fucking finds her at the kitchen? Oh, it's Tamlin. Fuck's sake, Pharaoh. Okay. So Tamlin finds her in the corridor. He's done the ritual, but there is some residual magic, and he's not entirely himself. And he basically pins her up against a wall and is like, I smelt you, I searched for you, but I couldn't find you, and so it made me like choose another one, basically. Like the magic made him pick someone else to shag for the sake of spring. And then he's like, he like pins her up and he's like, she didn't want me to be gentle with her, but I would have been gentle with you, and I would have made it last a very, very long time, Pharaoh. I would have had you moaning my name throughout it all, la 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 la. And then Pharaoh, because she can't like pick up on a vibe, is like, why should I want someone's leftovers? Like, girl, he is a very strong man and you were in a very compromised position, so like, just be careful. And then he basically bites her neck. He's like,
his claws are out, like not in her, but like into the wall. So she's like totally pinned up against this wall. And because this is the kind of book that it is, she's not terrified or threatened. She's into it. Um, and then he kisses her neck for like a weirdly long time. Do I need to? Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, just basically kissed her neck and then said, "Don't ever disobey me again." And Pharaoh said, "Don't tell me what to do. And don't bite me like some enraged beast." I'm like, but did you miss the part where like he's literally an enraged beast right now? So he leaves eventually, but she's like, wow, I want to have sex with this man. And like, you know, I don't want to yuck your yum, but it's not doing it for me. That felt weird. So Pharaoh wakes up the next morning, big fuck off bruise on her neck, and she goes to lunch with Tamlin and Lucian, and she decides like to, rather than try and like hide the bruise, she's gonna like make a show of it. So she's like unbuttoned her tunic a bit and made sure her hair's pinned up so that everyone can see the big bruise that he did. And she gets to the table and Lucian's like, what's up with your neck? And she's like, ask Tamlin. He did it. And Tamlin's like, yeah, I bit her. We ran into each other in the hall after the rite. And she like straightens in her chair and is like, yeah, as if she's like won an argument. And then he's like, she seems to have a death wish, blah, 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 blah. And Pharaoh realizes, oh, he's mad. He's mad because I didn't stay in my room like he told me to. And I'm like, yeah, Pharaoh, what about this man has made you think that he would be chill with you just totally ignoring him? Like, I'm not saying that like Tamlin's in the right. I'm just saying like Pharaoh, obviously he's gonna be pissed. Like, have you been there this whole time? Have you seen this person? Well, whatever the fuck that night was, Pharaoh is sort of acknowledging that she's into Tamlin now, and so much so that she's putting on a dress for dinner, and she's letting Alice, who's like kind of her like waiting lady servant person, she's letting her do her hair all pretty. So like, Pharaoh's into him. She's you know, she saw him in a corridor. He bit her neck, and now she's like, that's the man for me. Okay. I actually really, really like Lucian. So like Pharaoh walks in this big fucking gown, and they're like, and Lucian just goes, well, I'm late for something incredibly important, and leaves. What a wingman. Okay, so after dinner, Pharaoh like takes Tamlin by the hand and is like, I've got something for you. And she takes him to her little painting room because he's provided her with all these like paints and stuff, you know, the whole Beauty and the Beast shtick. And she's been painting and painting and painting and painting and painting, and that's basically what she's been doing when she's not been, you know, willfully ignoring orders and getting into trouble. And she has done this painting for him of the glen with the starlight pool. And it's on this easel in the middle. And she's like, I painted this for you. And she's all embarrassed and sheepish. But there's like fucking tons of other paintings that she's done in the room. And Tamlin like is like looking at everything. And she's getting all embarrassed. And she's like very literal with what she paints. So like there's a painting of the woods, and there's a painting of her cottage, and there's a painting of like Isaac, who's this guy that she used to have a kind of friends with benefits situation in her village, of like his hand in hay and her hair, because they used to like meet up and have sex in like a barn or something. So there's a painting of that. There's a painting of her dad's leg getting broken by his creditors. And so Tamlin's like watching, like looking at all of these paintings and is like, I want this painting of the trees in the forest, like when she used to hunt. And she is like, that's not the one I painted for you, but okay. Like, why do you want that one? And he's like, you know, I've had many lovers. And she gets mad. She gets mad when he's like, I've had many lovers. I'm like, dude, he's thousands of years old. Of course he has. And he's basically like, but they never really understood, you know, how much I care about taking care of my people and my lands and how much it means to me. And how bad the bad days feel and blah, blah, blah. And he basically thinks that the painting that she's done of the forest, where she used to hunt and take care of her family and would do anything for her family, reminds him that he is not alone. And Farah didn't lock her bedroom door that night. And that is the end of the chapter. What are we going to get in the next one? Okay, I thought we were going to have our first kiss there, but no. So Tam's taken her to a glen. They're like lounging on the ground. He's like dozing off and she's looking at him all like love struck. And he's like, oh, sorry, the singing of the willow always puts me to sleep. And she's like, the who now what? The singing willow? I don't hear any singing. And he's like, oh, like everything sings, everything makes noises. You can't hear it because you're human. And she's like, fuck's sake, being a human sucks. And he's like, well, I could show you, you know, like I could make it so that you could see what we see and hear how we hear and taste how we taste, if you get what he means. And she's like, cool, yeah, do that. And he's like, everything comes with a price. And she's like, fuck's sake. And he's like, a kiss. And she's like, no. Yeah. So she says no once, and he's like, okay. And then she caves because, you know, nice try, Farah. And then he like kneels up and he comes towards her and he's like, close your eyes. And we're like, oh my God, kiss, 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 kiss. And he kisses her eyes. Eyelids, not her eyes. Fuck, that would be awful. So he kisses her eyelids. And then all of a sudden she can like hear these magical sounds and it's like rich and amazing and like the grass is singing and all that. And she looks at Tamlin and she sees him. Like he still has the mask, but he's like emanating whatever, like magic. He's like glowing. He's Edward Cullen glittering in the sunshine. And she's like, holy fuck. And then all of a sudden he like goes back to normal, but she can still like hear all the magical sounds around her. And she's like, what happened? And he's like, oh, I put my glamour back on. And she's like, you who? What? And it turns out that's what he always looks like, but he like puts this glamour on himself to make himself look a bit more normal, because High Lords are like too hard to handle, too fucking attractive, too shiny special boys. So, you know, that's fun. But then Feyre's like, she like goes up to him and she puts a hand on either side of his mask and she tries to take it off, and he's like, you know, these have been stuck on our face for 50 years, right? And she's like, it really won't come off. Like, have you tried everything? It's like, Feyre. No, they haven't. They've just all had masks attached to their fucking face for half a century, and they didn't think to actually try everything. Love her. I love her. She's an idiot. So Tamlin then does remember that she's supposed to give him a kiss, and she grabs his hand and like aggressively kisses it and is like, there you go, that's your kiss. And he finds that hilarious because Feyre, what a sense of humor we know she has. And then she gets sleepy. She gets real sleepy and she falls asleep, and Tam lies down next to her, and as she's like just going into this like lovely, lovely slumber, he's like breathing against her ear and is like, "You're exactly as I dreamed you'd be too." What? So Pharaoh's just woken up. The day after she fell asleep in the glen with Tamlin, where he like gave her his fairy sight. And she wakes up and there's this fairy she doesn't recognize in her room, and she's like, "Where's Alice, the woman who's normally there?" And she's like, "What?" Because this fairy is like, has like skin like tree bark and stuff, and Alice is, you know, kind of like high fae looking, kind of like humanoid. And the fairy's like, I am Alice. And Pharaoh's like, "Oh, okay." And sort of then she's like making her way downstairs, and there's like way more fairies, and they are looking weirder than she's used to seeing, and she's realizing like the extent to which she's been like shielded from what the house is actually like, because she was a baby and she was all fraidy of the fairies, and Tamlin was trying to make her feel comfortable, but like it turns out there's been like shitloads of like fairy staff around that Pharaoh just like straight up hasn't seen or heard, that have just been there the whole time, and she's a bit freaked out. Pharaoh is drunk at the summer solstice. She's dancing with Tamlin. He's playing the fiddle. Shit's gonna go down. We have had our kiss, or first several kisses. Pharaoh was drunk, so cool. But you know, inhibition's lowered, so I guess that's nice. It was pretty PG. Nothing to write home about. Then they watched the sunrise. But the next day, my love for Lucian continues, because they're at breakfast / lunch, because they were up at dawn. And Lucian was on guard duty last night, so he wasn't really at the celebrations. And he's just basically sat at breakfast while Tam Tam and Feyre are like eye fucking each other over like toast. And Lucian's just sat there like trying to like, you know, just eat his breakfast in peace, while these horny teenagers who were not teenagers and should know better are just sort of just flirting. And Feyre like wants to take her clothes off, and she's like, "Take me on the fucking breakfast table right now, buddy." So that's where we're at. I think we're heading to some spice. Enter the most beautiful man she's ever seen. He's back. Lads, I think we're finally getting some plot, you know. So, here we go. Our boy, our hot boy who saved Feyre at Callan Mai from the three creepy guys, the most beautiful man she's ever seen. So he arrives at the spring court. Tam gets some spidey senses that someone is arriving. Everyone freaks out. Like, Lucian like slams Feyre into a wall and like stands in front of her like she's here, and he's like stood like that, and she senses magic because she can kind of like taste when magic is being used around her. She can. So we're like, okay, who's arriving? And it's a hot guy, right? Okay. And okay. This is hard for me because quite a lot of plot in this chapter. Okay. So it turns out his name is Reese Sand, and he is the High Lord of the Night Court, which, as the most northerly court, is widely considered to be the terrible one. Thanks. As someone who lives in the north. So yeah, he's a bad boy. A bad boy. The guy who sent the head, and actually he cops to the fact that he sent the head. He's like, did you like my gift? Did you get my message? Hey, editing Hannah here. I don't think I told you about this head. Sorry. If I did, I can't find the video. I can't fucking remember. Let's just assume it wasn't that important. It was, a head appeared. It was vaguely threatening. And we don't really know why he's here, but we do know he's something to do with a woman called Amarantha. Now, I don't think I've said this before, but in the little snatches of what Pharaoh has heard Lucien and Tam talk about so far, about the blight and what's happening with the magic and the like looming badness over there, they've been mentioning a she. So now we're thinking, is this Amarantha the she? And Lucien calls Reese Sand Amarantha's whore. So he's like somehow bound up in this. So Reese is here, we think on behalf of Amarantha, and we don't know the details, but like she is obviously playing some kind of game with Tamlin. She wants Tamlin to do something. Reese is talking about like Amarantha breaking him, and we can't wait to see you under the mountain. Yeah, so this lady Amarantha, she's trouble. She's not a good time. And Tamlin seems a little cagey about the whole thing. Pharaoh is still like pressed up behind Lucien, hidden by the glamour. They think they're getting away with it, and then Reese Sand looks at the breakfast table and he's like, oh, there's 3 table settings. Where's your guest? And then it's like all of a sudden he can see Pharaoh, and he's like, you dare glamour me? And he's like, who's your friend, Lucien? Who's this lady? And Lucien is like, oh, this is my betrothed. She's mine. Yeah, definitely my girlfriend, my future wife. And Reese Sand is all like, oh, I knew you had like common taste, because remember the whole Lucien thing where his family killed his like girlfriend because she was like middle class or whatever. And he's like, I didn't think you'd stoop to actually like banging a mortal, basically. And Tamlin, just sort of being completely unchill about it, is like, don't tell Amarantha about her. Don't tell Amarantha. And Reese Sand is like, maybe I will, maybe I won't, but as you said, I am Amarantha's whore, so like, I guess I should tell her. And Tamlin's like, I'm begging you. And Reese Sand is like, go on then. You can beg. Get down on your knees, beg. And so he does, and so does Lucien. Yeah, that's basically what, and he's like, okay, well, I'll see you later, maybe. Amarantha will look forward to seeing you under the mountain. Oh, and he does something else. So when he goes to see Pharaoh, he's like, it becomes clear. So you know how like Tamlin's got the like shape-shifting superpower? Reese Sand seems to have some kind of like mind control, or like some kind of telepathy thing, because he basically can get into her mind, and it feels like there's like claws in her mind, and he's like able to read her thoughts and stuff. And he's like, she has the most delicious thoughts about you, Tamlin. She's wondered about the feeling of your fingers on her thighs, between them two. I'm curious, why did she wonder if it would feel good to have you bite her breast the way you bit her neck? It's just like, kind of like, Pharaoh. Okay, sweetheart, that's just what's running through your brain while all this is going on, all right? But yeah, so that's where we're up to. I think I have heard about these books that basically fuck all happens, and then the last like 100 pages is like a ride. So I think we're gearing up to that. Yeah, so I think we're finally gonna get some outsider stuff, because I've not been enjoying it. I've not been enjoying it. This whole like ambling around the spring court and meeting different like creatures and blah blah blah. But this is high fantasy, and I'm waiting for the like high part of the high fantasy to happen. And here we go. Here we go. So great, cool. See you soon. So aftermath of Reese Sand. Basically, Tamlin orders Lucian and Pharaoh to like leave the room, and then he has an almighty High Lord strop. Like, so Pharaoh goes up to her room, and then like a while later, Tamlin comes up to her room, and he's like, "I'm so sorry," and she's like, "It's okay," even though it's not. And he's like, "I'm gonna send you home," and she's like, well, I thought you couldn't send me home. What about the treaty? The whole reason that she's like serving a sentence by being in prison, all that shit. And he's like, yeah, I've taken on your debt. So if anyone comes, I will tell them that I killed Andrus. And she's like, I thought that was not a loophole, but all right, fine. But she's like, did I do something wrong? Because she doesn't want to go now, right? Because he's hot. And she's like, why do I have to go? He's like, there's people who know about you now, and they'll try and hurt you because of what you mean to me. And so he's like, you need to go home, far from here. You'll be safe there. And she's like, I can hold my own. No, you can't, sweetheart. Have you learned nothing? No, you can't. That guy nearly, like, he could have just just crushed her sanity with a fucking breath. Piece of cake. You cannot hold your own against these people. My God. She's something else. They're having a big kiss because, they're about to be parted. And like, I know what she means. I know what Sarah J Maas means, but he pulled me onto his lap, holding me tightly against him as his lips parted mine. I became aware of every pore in my body when his tongue entered my mouth. That's kind of gross. Imagine being aware of every pore in your body. No, thank you. No, thank you. We talked about Tamlin's claws before. So you know how he's a wee beastie. And he's got these like Wolverine style claws that are like he can retract out of his hands. And I don't feel like there's any need for them to make an appearance in a sex scene, but here we go. So his kissing was slower this time, gentler. The fingertips of his other hand slipped beneath the waist of my undergarment, and I sucked in a breath. He hesitated at the sound, pulling back slightly, but I bit his lip in a silent command that had him growling into my mouth. With one claw, he shredded through silken lace, and my undergarment fell away in pieces. The claw retracted. I find it so silly. I find it so silly. The idea that it's just like, you can just take her pants off, mate. We don't need to be slipping out a claw. And let's also acknowledge the amount of trust you would need to have to allow a hand anywhere near your special place if it had retractable claws. I'm not risking it. I'm just not risking it. Sorry if you can hear the football in the background. I can't be bothered to put it on mute. Obviously, despite the fact that he's vastly older than her and vastly more experienced and, you know, whatever. He's the one who wants to not do sexy time because, you know, he won't be able to stop. And obviously, Pharaoh's the one who has to be like, no, we should. Because that's definitely the power dynamic. Yeah, they're having sex. Well, I mean, they're not having sex yet, but Pharaoh is flashing her vag, so it's imminent. We were a tangle of limbs and teeth, and I tore at his clothes until they were on the floor, then tore at his skin until I marked him down his back and his arms. His claws were out, but devastatingly gentle. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Devastatingly gentle on my hips as he slid down between my thighs and feasted on me. I love euphemisms for orgasm. Today we've gone for stopping only after I shuddered and fractured. I'm like, well, he is much more powerful than you. Like, are you okay? You might actually want to check yourself for some fractures, love, because he's a strong boy. No. Sheathed. I hate it. I hate sheathed. I was moaning his name when he sheathed himself inside me. Nope. Nope. She's splintering now. She made of fucking wood. She's fractured, now she's splintering. Poor woman, she's having a time. So basically, after the fracturing, there was the sheathing and then some splintering. Then they went over a cliff. And I fell asleep in his arms, and when I awoke a few hours later, we made love again. See, now all of a sudden, now it's making love. Lazily and intently. Trying to think if I've ever done something both lazily and intently before. I don't think I've ever done those two adverbs in conjunction, but like, good for them. Also, something that I've noticed that Sarah J Maas does with the fact that Pharaoh is like a painter, like an artist, right? Every time she it feels like every time she kind of can't be bothered to describe something, she just has Pharaoh go, I would never be able to paint it. You'd be like, oh, how do I describe this sensation? It was a sensation that I would never be able to paint. Okay. After lovemaking, we're going to sleep, and Tamlin whispers, I love you. Thorns and all, because caught with thorns and roses. And Sarah doesn't say anything back. And the next day she's getting ready to go. And she's dressed up in like fancy mortal people clothing. And Lucian says, I thought you were smarter than this, to Pharaoh. And she's all like, you know, not understanding, because she never bloody does. Lewin, are you okay? He's rummaging. And then Lucian goes to Tamlin, are you not going to give her a few more days? And Tamlin's like, this isn't up for debate. But here's what I'm thinking. Is she supposed to say I love you? Is this actually Beauty and the Beast? This is actually Beauty and the Beast, isn't it? Is this obviously Beauty and the Beast? Did I not pick up on the fact that it's objectively supposed to be Beauty and the Beast? Oh. Whoops. Yeah, it's definitely that she needs to say I love you, because she's making far too much of a fuss about not saying it. Because he says I love you again as she gets in this carriage to take her back to the human realm. She's like, I should say it, I should say those words, but they got stuck in my throat because of what he had to face, because he might not find me again despite his promise, because beneath it all, he was an immortal and I would grow old and die, and maybe he meant it now, and perhaps last night had been... He's got no timing, this dog. I am trying to do a dramatic reading. Hearts are at stake. Right. And because beneath it all he was an immortal and I would grow old and die. And maybe he meant it now, and perhaps last night had been as altering for him as it had been for me, but I would not become a burden to him. I would not become another weight pressing upon his shoulders. So that's why she's not saying I love you, which, you know, seems adjusted of her. Feyre is back in the human realm, and she, like, a spell was put on her when she got in the carriage so that she fell asleep immediately and then just woke up and didn't have a fucking clue where she was, but she was at this fancy fucking mansion. And when Tamlin said he looked after her family, what he means is he made them super fucking rich. They're super fucking rich again, so I guess all their problems are solved. Do you remember ages ago, Pharaoh captured that cereal thing that is like a creature that has to tell you the truth? Well, she's been reflecting on the fact that what the cereal told her to do was to stay with the High Lord. So do we think that Pharaoh is going to stay with her family in the fancy mansion, or do we think possibly Pharaoh is going to go back?
Morning. So Pharaoh's back in human land. And it turns out, you remember her like dicky older sister, Nesta? Kind of like really cold, really rude, really mean. We didn't like her. Well, turns out the glamour that Tam put on the family to make them think that Pharaoh was just nursing their sick aunt and there's nothing to worry about didn't work on Nesta. So Nesta remembers everything, and she even went to the wall to try and get Pharaoh back, but they couldn't find a way through. So maybe she does love her in her own way. Good older sistering, well done. So Nesta and Pharaoh chatting. Basically, Pharaoh tells her everything because Nesta's like, tell me what happened, and she's like, okay, I will. And then they're reflecting on their dad, because Nesta fucking hates their dad because he like didn't like, not just because he lost all the money and then, you know, didn't try and fight for them or whatever, but because he let their mum die. You know, he was like, he had all those ships, he could have gone to Prythian to like beg for a cure, and instead he let her waste away. And then Nesta activates Pharaoh because she goes, like, you would never have done that to your High Lord. You would have gone to the end of the earth to save him. And Pharaoh's like, yeah. So I think we're about to get a rescue mission that's probably going to end disastrously. Come on, Pharaoh. Oh, so remember when Pharaoh was in the dining room when Hot Boy Reese Sand arrived at Tamlin's house to like threaten him? Well, what I didn't tell you is that he asked her name, and she said Claire Bedor, because that was just a name of the girl in the village where she grew up. And she's just found out that Claire Bedor's house got burned down with her entire family inside it. And that blood is on your hands, Pharaoh. Yes, it is. Oh. So the whole family were in the house, but Claire's body wasn't found. So we thinking Reese Sand stole Claire, took her somewhere, and now Pharaoh is double activated because she's like, I gotta go rescue her. You do. You genuinely do. Okay. Pharaoh has got on a horse. She's got into the forest. She's got no plan. She's gonna find the wall. She does find the wall. The wall is invisible. Quite hard to find. She doesn't know how to get through it, so she just kind of like walks along it until she finds a bit that she can get through. Takes her 2 days. Rides through the forest. It's very, very quiet. it's bad news bears, bad news bears. And she gets to the Spring Court. She gets to Tam's Manor, and the gates have been ripped open. And there's absolutely nobody fucking there. There's no one there. Tam is gone. Okay, I'm gonna have to sit up. Right. Whew. I'm gonna have to sit up and have some coffee because we've just had an almighty exposition info dump. So, and I was trying to get to the end of the chapter, but I literally don't think I can retain this much plot. So here we go. Okay. Pharaoh is she's in the manor, there's nobody there. She hears some footsteps. She hides. Good instinct. It's Alice. Handy that the one person left around is someone that she actually knows. Cool. And Pharaoh's like, because she's sort of worked out, she's been like following the like tracks and stuff. She thinks that Tam and Lucian like walked out on their own. And she's like, where are they? What happened? And here's what happened. Okay, fuck. All right. Okay. So, where to begin? So, Tamlin and Lucian have gone under the mountain to Amarantha. So, this is who Amarantha is. Amarantha is the High Queen of Prythian, like their little continent. And Pharaoh's like, there's no High Queen, it's ruled by 7 lords. And she's like, yeah, well, that was the case until about 50 years ago. So, Amarantha was one of the generals in the war with the humans ages ago. Not on the side of the humans, on the side of the fairies, because some fairies did fight for the humans. And she was kind of under the command of Highburn, or the King of Highburn, I can't remember. But basically, there's like 2 continents. It's basically, Prythian's kind of the UK, and then there's like all of Europe over here that's like nothing to do with the story yet, but there's a king over there, and it's very, very bad on the mainland. Getting very Brexity vibes, but bad over here, better over here. Humans are just totally enslaved over there. Right, okay. So Amarantha was a general on the baddies. She was a baddie. And she had this sister called Clythia, who was also badass general, vicious, awful. But she fell in love with a human. She fell in love with a human general called Jurian. This is the sister. And even though they were on opposite sides, she would still like sneak over to him. And Jurian was using her for information, intelligence. And Clythia genuinely loved him. And Amarantha kind of turned a bit of a blind eye to it, couldn't bring herself to kill Jurian because of how devastated her sister would be. So she sort of just kind of let it happen. And then after Jurian had got all the information he could out of Clythia, he killed her. And he didn't just kill her. He like crucified her on like ash and like ripped her to fucking pieces. So Amarantha, from that point on, she already didn't like humans. Now she's fucking because she loved her sister. So she wanted to basically like wipe out all the humans. And even the King of Highburn was like, chill, girl. So that's the backstory. About 100 years ago, I think, already forgetting, fucking hell, she basically came over to Prythian, and she's sort of like making amends and kind of ingratiating herself with all the courts, and yeah, she's just sort of being like, oh no, I totally like, my bad, but you know, I just want to move on. And she was technically came over as like Highburn's emissary. But all the time she's been kind of like plotting to take over.
to take over Prithian. And so the Blight is Amarantha. She is the Blight. She's the thing that's, you know, taking over the lands. She set up her own court under the sacred mountain, and she basically managed to get all the Seven Lords together because she'd convinced them that she was like fine, and she gave them all a potion which laid bare their magic, and then she like took it. So the magic that Tam has now is like 5% of what he should have. She's got all of it. She's got all Seven Lords, got it all. Which is like, okay, sure she does. I'm really liking Pharaoh's chances going up against this woman. And she has also, so she steals their powers, but she also took a bit of a shine to our Tam Tam. She thought he was a bit of hot stuff. And he, quite rightly, was like, you lady have stolen all my powers and are really scary, and I do not want to put any part of my body inside any part of your body. Thank you so much. And she did not like that. But she, you know, she didn't like it. But so I think she put the curse on them then. I don't know. I already can't remember. It was like wall-to-wall exposition. Jesus. But essentially, she fancied Tam. He wasn't having any of it. He wanted peace with her, though, because she's super powerful, right? So he sent Lucian as an emissary to her court under the mountain. And Lucian was a bit salty with her because Lucian is a salty boy. And she just, like, plucked his eye out with a finger. Have I mentioned this? That Lucian has, like, a brass eye and, like, quite a lot of facial scarring, which you can't really tell anyway because he's got a mask stuck on his face. But yeah, he's scarred. And it was Amarantha. She like plucked out his eye and then like scratched his face with her fingers. And when Lucian came back to the Spring Court, all like bloodied and messy, Tam threw up. That's how bad he was. And like Tam, he can stomach some stuff. So that happened. Then Amarantha was like, I'm going to throw you a ball to say sorry for that. Geez, I've got such a temper. And again, Tam is like, I really need this woman to just like be on side. She's too powerful. So we kind of have to go along with whatever she wants, except for the fact that I will not be her consort because she's scary. So she throws the ball, and that's the ball where she's like, oh, let's do a masked ball, like in honor of your shape-shifting abilities that I have stolen 95% of. And that's the moment when the masks get stuck to their faces. But at that ball, Tam, she's like coming onto him again, and he's like, no, like for fuck's sake, no. And he says, I would rather marry a human than you. And then something else. What does he say? Yeah, I think he'd rather marry a human. Oh, and then he says something about her sister, like even your sister preferred humans to you. Like, Tamlin, fuck's sake. What a pair they are, him and Pharaoh, honestly. But yeah, so then she put this curse on him that was basically like, if in 7 by 7 years, here we go. I'm gonna have to fucking read it to you. Where are we? La 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 la. Okay. Sorry. Oh, he spat in her face and she laughed. She said he had 7 times 7 years, 49, before she claimed him, before he had to join her under the mountain. If he wanted to break her curse, he need only find a human girl willing to marry him. Hey, Beauty and the Beast. But not any girl, a human girl with ice in her heart, with hatred for our kind, a human girl willing to kill a fairy. The Worse, the fairy she killed had to be one of his men, sent across the wall by him like lambs to slaughter. The girl could only be brought here to be courted if she killed one of his men in an unprovoked attack, killed him for hatred alone, just as Durian had done to Clythia, so he could understand her sister's pain. So the treaty was a lie. What Tam was doing was sacrificing his men, just sending them over the wall in the hope that some random human girl kills them on sight. And at the beginning, the wolf didn't try and get away, and he kind of looked at Pharaoh. And so she's realizing, oh, like he was sent there to die and he let her kill him, which is like, you know, that's sad and like rough on Tam, rough on the boys. That's not very nice. So and Tamlin had said that Andros was over there to find a cure, and that so the cure that he was looking for was essentially was looking for Pharaoh. So fucking hell. This video is going to be really long. And I know I said at the start, hey, I'm not doing the plot, but I clearly am doing the plot. So fucking hell. Okay. Here we go. Let's carry on. More exposition. Right. Amarantha knows humans are preoccupied with beauty and thus bound the masks to all of our faces, to his face, so it would be more difficult to find a girl willing to look beyond the mask, beyond his fairy nature, and to the soul beneath. Okay. Oh, and obviously they were all cursed so that they couldn't speak of it. So Alice is like, the fact that I can tell you all of this now means we've lost. Game over. Amarantha wins. Because previously we literally couldn't tell you. Soz. It's just one fucking chapter. What a fucking info dump. Alice is pissed. She's like, all you had to do was say that you loved him. Say that you loved him and mean it with your whole useless human heart, and his power would have been freed. You stupid, stupid girl. I mean, this is why we should all be honest about how we're feeling, Pharaoh. You never know what's at stake. She's also realizing, Pharaoh, that Tam, in letting her go, has basically chosen her safety over the entire land. Which, like, I don't know. Tam. That's a bit much. It's a bit much. Pharaoh's like, if he had all his powers, would he be stronger than Amarantha? And Alice is like, he's a High Lord. And she's like, it doesn't matter. He's to be her slave, and we're all to wear these masks until he agrees to become her lover. Imagine being so hot that someone would go to all of this effort just to shag you. Unreal. He must be looking good under that mask. Pharaoh. How do I get under the mountain? You can't go under the mountain. No human who goes in ever comes out. Pharaoh. How do I get under the mountain? Oh, Girlie's gonna go save her guy. Alice is like, you're such a dum-dum that you didn't figure out what was going on here, so like you're definitely not smart enough to go up against Amarantha, and like I agree. Alice is giving us some rules for going under the mountain. Let's see how many of them Pharaoh breaks. Don't drink the wine. Wise. Don't make deals with anyone unless your life depends on it, and even then, consider whether it's worth it. And most of all, don't trust a soul in there. Not even your Tamlin. Your senses are your greatest enemies. They will be waiting to betray you. Is Pharaoh gonna let her senses betray her? Come on, girlie. Ooh. Alice. There's one part of the curse, one part we can't tell you. I'm doing my best acting for you. One part we can't tell you. Even now my bones are crying out just for mentioning it. One part you have to figure out on your own. One part that she doesn't want you to know if I can't say it. but keep your ears open. Listen to what you hear. Thank you. I will accept an Oscar. And on that cliffhanger, I'm going to have to love you and leave you and see you in part 2 because my laptop cannot cope with the length of this video. See you soon, friends. Part 2 is linked down below. Bye.